A white person can walk into a room with nothing. No money, no plan, no proof, and somehow, the room may still give them the benefit of the doubt. But a black person can walk into that same room successful, educated, clean, calm, and expensive looking, and the room may still wait for evidence. Not because anybody checked their bank account, not because anybody knows their story, but because before people think, they sort. And one of the fastest things the human brain sorts is status. Who looks powerful? Who looks safe? Who looks like they belong? Who looks like they need to explain themselves? This is where the lie starts. Because most people do not see wealth first. They see the symbol of wealth. They see skin. They see accent. They see passport. They see neighborhood. They see how the world has trained them to read a body before they read a person. And for hundreds of years, the world has repeated one image so many times that it started to feel natural. White as owner, white as boss, white as investor, white as tourist, white as the person who can enter a place and be assumed to have a reason. And then the opposite image was repeated too. Black as worker, black as struggle, black as danger, black as poverty, black as the person who has to prove why they are there. That is not truth. That is programming. And the scary part is, most people don't even notice when they are running it. Because bias does not always sound like hate. Sometimes it sounds like surprise. You speak so well. You live there? That car is yours? You can afford that? They let you into that place? The words may look small, but underneath them is a question. How did someone like you get something like this? And once you hear that question enough times, you start to understand something painful. Some people are born with assumed status. Other people are born into a trial. They must prove they are not poor. They must prove they are not dangerous. They must prove they are not lucky. They must prove they earned the room. And this is not only about America. This happens in Europe. It happens in Africa. It happens online. It happens in airports. It happens in dating. It happens in luxury stores. It happens when a black person travels and people ask what they do for work before they ask their name. It happens when a white backpacker can be broke in another country and still be called adventurous, while a black immigrant with a degree is treated like a problem to be checked. That is the difference between being read as possibility and being read as burden. And the reason is deeper than money. It is history turned into instinct. For centuries, global power was shown to the world with a white face. Kings, colonizers, bankers, CEOs, movie stars, explorers, the person holding the map, the person owning the land, the person signing the papers, the person giving permission. And even after laws changed, the image did not disappear. It stayed in movies. It stayed in news. It stayed in school books. It stayed in the way people imagine success. So when many people see whiteness, their brain reaches for the old shortcut: access, money, education, safety, freedom, even when the individual white person has none of those things. And when many people see blackness, their brain reaches for the shortcut it was given: poverty, struggle, crime, need, suspicion, even when the individual black person has worked twice as hard to stand in the same place. This is why stereotypes are so dangerous. They do not need to be true for everyone. They only need to be repeated enough that people treat them like a starting point. And once a stereotype becomes the starting point, reality has to fight uphill. A rich black person is called different. A poor white person is called going through something. A successful black person is asked who helped them. A successful white person is assumed to have potential. A black person with money is sometimes treated like the money is new, fake, illegal, borrowed, or temporary. A white person with money is often treated like the money fits. That is the invisible tax, not money taken from your account, but energy taken from your mind. The energy of proving you belong, proving you are not a threat, proving you are not broke, proving you are not the stereotype they met before they met you. And after a while, people start dressing against the accusation. They over-explain, they over-prepare, they buy the expensive watch, not only because they like it, but because they are tired of being doubted. They speak carefully, they hide anger, they become excellent just to be treated as normal. And this is where the system becomes cruel. Because if a white person is relaxed, they are confident. If a black person is relaxed, they may be called unserious. If a white person is quiet, they are mysterious. If a black person is quiet, they may be called suspicious. If a white person is broke, people may still imagine a future. If a black person is rich, people may still search for the catch. That is not intelligence. That is a broken status detector. Your brain is supposed to use patterns to survive. In ancient life, quick judgment could keep you alive. Who is dangerous? Who has power? Who belongs to my group? Who should I avoid? But modern society hijacked that old survival system and fed it racial stories. So now the brain sometimes mistakes a social stereotype for a real signal. It feels like instinct, but it is learned. And because it feels automatic, people defend it. They say, I'm just being realistic. They say, that's just how the world is. They say, it's not racism, it's experience. But experience can be edited. If every movie shows one group as rich and another as poor, that becomes experience. If every news story shows one group as dangerous and another as powerful, that becomes experience. If every luxury ad shows one face as the customer and another as the servant, that becomes experience. But it is not the full world. It is a selected image, repeated, until your brain stops questioning it. And that is why representation matters. Not because people need fake positivity, but because the brain builds reality from what it sees often. If it only sees black poverty, it expects black poverty. If it only sees white power, it expects white power. And when reality breaks that expectation, people don't always update their belief. Sometimes they attack the exception. This is why a black person succeeding can make some people uncomfortable, because it does not just challenge their opinion, it challenges the ranking system in their head. They thought they knew where everyone was supposed to stand, and then someone stood somewhere else. But here is the truth. There are poor white people. There are rich black people. There are struggling people in every race. There are powerful people in every race. But society does not always distribute assumptions equally. Some people are assumed upward. Some people are assumed downward. And that assumption can shape how they are treated before they even open their mouth. That is why this topic is not really about who has money. It is about who gets believed, who gets trusted, who gets respect before proof, who can fail and still be seen as human, who can succeed and still be treated like an exception. Because the most powerful privilege is not always being rich. Sometimes it is being assumed capable before you prove anything. And one of the heaviest burdens is not always being poor. Sometimes it is being assumed poor, even when you have already escaped poverty. A stereotype can follow you longer than your circumstances. You can change your clothes. You can change your income. You can change your country. You can change your accent. But some people will still meet the image in their head before they meet you. And if you are black, you may spend years fighting a version of yourself that never existed, a broke version, a dangerous version, an uneducated version, a version created by history, media, fear, and lazy thinking. But the answer is not to hate white people, and it is not to pretend black people are perfect. The answer is to see the machine, to notice the shortcut before it becomes judgment, to ask why your brain assumed what it assumed, to understand that status is not skin, wealth is not race, poverty is not identity, and no human being should have to walk into a room carrying evidence that they deserve respect. Because the real problem was never that white people are all rich. They are not. And it was never that black people are all poor. They are not. The real problem is that the world taught people to read race like a bank statement. And once you see that, you can never unsee it again.